There is one physical trait that registers as attractive across virtually every culture, every era, and every study that has ever looked at male physique appeal. It's not abs, it's not arms, it is the shoulders. Wide, developed shoulders create the silhouette that everything else is built around. They're what makes a t-shirt look good, they're what creates that taper down to the waist that signals physical power even when you're fully clothed. And here's the thing, they're one of the most trainable parts of your body. You don't need exceptional genetics for them, you don't even need 20 years of lifting. You just need to understand what you're actually building, what specific parts of the shoulder matter most for that look, and which exercises will get you there the fastest. And that is exactly what this video is for. By the end, you'll know the anatomy, the targets, and the exact movements to execute with zero guesswork. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going deep on the shoulders, specifically building them for visual impact. We're going to cover the anatomy so that you actually understand what you're working with, break down which muscles within the shoulder complex matter the most for that wide, powerful look, and then go through the best exercises for each one with full step-by-step instructions. Let's get into it. Before you can train something effectively though, you do need to understand it. So let's spend a couple of minutes on the shoulder anatomy, and I promise this will pay off when we get to the exercise selection. The shoulder is the most mobile joint in the human body. That mobility though can come at a bit of a cost, as it is also one of the most injury prone, which is why understanding what you are working with matters for training it smart as well as hard. The primary muscle group covering the shoulder is the deltoid. The deltoid isn't one muscle, it's three distinct heads, each with its own line of pull and its own function. You have the anterior deltoid, or the front delt, which sits at the front of the shoulder. It's involved in pressing movements and raising the arm forward. Most people have a reasonably developed anterior delt because it gets heavily recruited during bench pressing. In terms of attractiveness, it is the least critical of the three, and overdeveloping the front delt relative to the others actually will pull the shoulders forward and create a rounded, hunched posture that works against the look that you ideally want. You have the lateral deltoid, which is the side delt of the head, and is the one that matters the most for attractiveness. This is the muscle that sits on the outer edge of the shoulder. It's directly responsible for the shoulder width. When people talk about building that wide capped look, they are talking about the lateral head. It's the primary driver of the shoulder to waist ratio. It doesn't get adequately stimulated by pressing movements, so it does require dedicated lateral work, which we will get into. And then you also have the posterior delt, which is the rear head at the back of the shoulder. And this is one that will get chronically underdeveloped in almost every gym goer, and is a serious visual mistake to neglect it. The rear delt contributes to that three-dimensional, full, rounded appearance of the shoulder from every angle. More importantly, a strong rear delt pulls the shoulder back into its natural position, improving your posture, making the chest sit taller, making the entire upper body look more powerful. Neglect it and your shoulders will look flat from the side. Train it and that whole shoulder will pop. Beyond the deltoids though, there are actually two other muscle groups that are worth mentioning in the context of shoulder attractiveness. You've got the trapezius muscle, and the trap runs from the base of the skull down the mid-back and across the shoulder blades. The upper trap creates that slope from the neck to the shoulder. Mother upper trap development looks powerful and complete. Overdevelopment, however, shortens the visual line of the neck and can make the shoulders appear narrower, so it is worth being intentional here rather than just maxing out your shrugs. Make sure you don't prioritise trap development over actual deltoid development. There is also the rotator cuff, which are four small muscles that will stabilise the shoulder joint. They're not visible, but they are the foundation that everything else will sit upon. Neglect them and you will eventually end up getting injured. Train them and your delts can get pushed harder for much longer. Worth spending a bit of time on, and we'll touch how to incorporate them. So with all that in mind, what is the priority order for building your shoulder attractiveness specifically? Number one is the lateral deltoid, and this is a non-negotiable. This is where your width comes from. If your lateral delts are underdeveloped, nothing else you do will fully be able to compensate for it. It needs direct, dedicated training, and it needs to be the centerpiece of your shoulder sessions. Number two is the posterior deltoid. The rear delt is the difference between shoulders that look good from the front and shoulders that look good from every angle. It also will dramatically improve your posture, which is a massive factor in how your entire physique reads, both in the gym and just generally in your daily life. If you're ignoring rear delts right now, this is the biggest untapped opportunity. Number 3 is the overall deltoid for general mass and roundedness. This comes from overhead pressing, which builds the shoulder as a whole and creates that full 3-dimensional cap that sits upon top of the arm. Upper traps sit in a supporting role, which is worth developing moderately but not the primary focus, and the ideal aesthetic shoulder is wide laterally, full from behind, rounded from the front and balanced. So that is what we're going to try and build towards, and here is how. So we'll go through some exercises that will develop you the best shoulders possible for being as attractive as possible. So exercise number 1 is the seated dumbbell overhead press, which primarily targets the overall delt for some mass. Hitting all 3 heads in the overhead press is the foundation. It builds raw shoulder size and strength and creates the base upon which everything else is able to sit. We're going to be seated here because it removes the lower back from the equation and keeps the focus on the shoulder, as you can cheat a little bit if you're standing by doing a little bit of a push press, by getting a little bend in the knees and obviously pushing up. So here is how to do them properly. Step number 1 is to set an adjustable bench to 90 degrees, basically straight upright, as upright as the benches in your gym will let you. Sit with your feet flat on the floor, back firmly pressed against the pad. Pick up your dumbbells and bring them to shoulder height, palms facing forward, elbows at roughly 90 degrees. This will be your starting position. Recommend starting light on this, and then you can obviously always up if needed. So then step number 2 is bring them directly overhead in a nice controlled arc, bringing them together at the top without letting them collide. Don't knock out violently, keep a slight bend in the elbow at the top to maintain tension on the muscle. Step number 3 is lower the dumbbells back to the starting position slowly. The descent should take at least 2 seconds. Resist the weight, don't let it drop. Dropping it can cause injuries, so make sure it's nice and controlled. Also, bringing it down slower means you're just under tension a bit longer, getting a bit more of the hypertrophic stimulus, as that eccentric phase is where a significant portion of the growth stimulus actually comes from. A few good points here is to try and keep your core braced throughout. Don't let your lower back arch away from the pad, and don't let your elbows flare excessively forward or drift excessively back, as they should track roughly in line with your ears. Again, as I mentioned a bit earlier, start conservative on the weight until you are confident in the movement pattern. What we recommend here is between 2 to 4 sets for anywhere between 8 and 20 repetitions should be perfect. That brings us on to the next exercise, which is cable lateral raises, which primarily hit the lateral head of your deltoid. This is the single most important exercise for shoulder width, and the cable variation is slightly superior to the dumbbells for one specific reason, and that reason is that it maintains constant tension throughout the entire range of motion. With a dumbbell, the tension will drop at the bottom of the movement where the weight is just hanging there. With a cable, however, the tension is consistent from start to finish, and that makes a meaningful difference to lateral delta development. So, how to do this one? Step number 1. Set a cable machine to the lowest position and attach a single handle grip. Stand sideways to the machine, feet roughly shoulder width apart, but it is entirely up to you, and hold the handle with the hand furthest away from the machine so that the cable will cross in front of your body. Your working arm should start at your side. If you would like, you can, with the hand closest to the cable, hold on and lean slightly away from the machine just to put a bit of extra tension there. So then that brings us on to step number 2. So with the slight bend in your elbow, keep that bend fixed throughout as you raise your arm laterally until it's approximately parallel to the floor. Think about leading with your elbow rather than your hand. Your pinky should be very slightly higher than your thumb at the top of the movement, as this internal rotation maximally recruits the lateral head. Step number 3 is to lower the arm back slowly and with control. Don't let the weight stack pull you quickly back down. Resist for 2 to 3 seconds on the way down, as again going down quickly can cause injuries and can also pull you into the machine, and that will hurt. So don't do that. A few key points here. Don't use momentum or swing your torso too much. Try not to do it at all. So keep your body upright and still. If you find yourself leaning or swinging, then the weight is too heavy. On this, you will want to start very light. The lateral delt is a relatively small muscle, so it doesn't actually need huge weights to be effectively stimulated. Technique matters here more than almost any other exercise. So complete all reps on one side before you switch sides. High reps here is probably the best course of action. We recommend 3 or 4 sets of anywhere between 10 and 20 repetitions. So that brings us to exercise number 3, which is dumbbell lateral raises, which we might do the drop set here. As we're again going to be targeting that lateral deltoid. We're doubling up the lateral delt work here because it's that important. The drop set technique is particularly effective for lateral raises because it lets you push past the point where your form would otherwise break down on a heavier weight. We recommend maybe doing the next exercise first to let the side delts rest for a few minutes and then do this drop set. So step number 1, pick up a pair of dumbbells and to start a relatively moderate weight where you can perform 12 clean repetitions. Stand with your feet in whatever position is most comfy for you. Personally, I like my legs to stand together, but you can stand shoulder width. If you can stand like really far apart, but I don't know why you do that. Basically whatever's comfortable. Step number 2 is raise both arms simultaneously to shoulder height, leading with the elbows, getting that slight internal rotation at the top, and then control the descent down. Perform 10 to 12 repetitions. You can go a bit higher than parallel, but going higher will activate the traps a bit more, taking your focus away from that lateral delt. So again, it is down to personal preference. If you want to hit the traps a bit, go higher. If you don't want to hit the traps, go to about parallel. Entirely up to you. That brings us to step number 3. Without resting, immediately drop to a lighter pair of dumbbells once you finish your 12 repetitions or however many you go to. And then you want to go to a roughly 30 or 40% less weight and continue for another 10 to 12 repetitions. If you have a third set of lighter dumbbells available, drop again and push out another 8 to 10 repetitions. The goal with this is to keep the technique clean as the fatigue sets in. So when your form begins to break down, you're done with that weight. Don't chase the reps at the cost of the movement pattern. Our recommendation here would be 2 drop sets. So we'd recommend you do the full drop set, maybe take a minute or 2 to rest, and then try again. That brings us to exercise number 4, which is the bent over dumbbell rear delt fly. I know, it rolls off the tongue lovely, doesn't it? This will primarily hit the posterior deltoid, and this is probably the most important exercise that most people aren't actually doing. The rear delt fly directly targets the posterior head and is the primary driver of that full 3-dimensional shoulder appearance. So, how to do it? Step number 1. Stand with feet shoulder width apart and hinge at the hips until your torso is close to parallel with the floor. Think the remaining deadlift position when you've lowered the weight down. Your back should be flat, not rounded. Hold a pair of light dumbbells hanging directly below your chest, palms facing each other. This will want to be very light. It is a bit of an ego bruiser, this one, but it does feel good. It does get some good work going. Alternatively, you can sit down on a bench that is upright and lean forward so your chest is kind of resting on your legs, but make sure you have a nice straight back. Again, whichever is most comfy and you find easiest. You can also do it so you have the upright bench, but you rest your head on it. Again, also works, but that'll be from a standing position. That brings us to step number 2. This is the same across all of them. With a slight bend in the elbows, keeping that bend fixed, raise both arms out to the side until again they're roughly parallel with the floor. Think about driving your elbows together and back rather than lifting your hands. Squeeze your shoulder blades together at the top for half a second. Step number 3 is to lower the dumbbells slowly back to the starting position, making sure you're in full control, no dropping. Again, dropping can cause injuries, which you obviously do not want. A few key coaching points here. This exercise is almost always done with too much weight. If you're using heavy dumbbells here, you're almost certainly recruiting your traps and using momentum rather than isolating the rear delt. Go a lot lighter than you think you need to. Make sure you keep your head neutral. You don't really need to strain your neck by looking up. So if you can and it's comfortable, it's entirely up to you. Your spine should essentially be in a straight line from your tailbone to your crown. Our recommendation here is 3 or 4 sets of anywhere between 10 and 20 repetitions. Exercise number 5 is the face pull, which primarily targets the posterior deltoid, the rotator cuffs and the upper back. And the face pull is the exercise that ties the whole shoulder together. It trains the rear delt, as we said, the rotator cuff and the external rotators simultaneously, which means it builds the muscles that give the shoulder its full appearance from the back while actively protecting the joint. Every serious shoulder program should include face pulls. They also counteract the internal rotation dominance that comes from pressing heavy programs, pulling the shoulders back into healthy alignment. So, how to do them? Step number 1. Set a cable machine to roughly face height or slightly above that and attach a rope handle. You can also do it with just a bar, but the ropes that I find a little comfier. Again, down to personal preference. You want to grip your handle with both hands, thumbs pointing towards you. So if you're using the rope, it looks like this. Step back until you feel the tension in the cable and stand with a slight stagger in your feet for stability. Again, I like to lean a little bit just to get that bit of extra deep stretch at the bottom. Step 2 is to pull the rope directly to your face, allowing your elbows to flare out wide into the sides, higher than your hands. As the rope reaches your face, separate your hands as if you're trying to pull the rope apart, driving your elbows back and your hands out to each side. Your upper arms should end up roughly parallel with the floor, elbows at or above shoulder height. Hold that contracted position for a full second, squeezing those shoulder blades together again. Then extend your arms back out slowly with control. Again, rushing here can cause injuries and can also pull you forward, so you may end up smashing into the cable machine if you let it go quickly, so don't do that. Again, repeat for however many you decide to do. A few key coaching points here is the key cue, as we said, is elbows high and wide. If your elbows drop below your hands, the shift will move away from the rear delt and the rotator cuff. Keep the weight light enough to execute this cleanly. This is a precision movement, not a strength movement. And again, here our recommendation is 2 to 4 sets of anywhere between 10 and 20 repetitions. This brings us on to exercise number 6, the Arnold press. The primary target here is all 3 deltoid heads, with emphasis on the anterior and lateral. The Arnold press, created and named, as you might have guessed, by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself, is a variation of the overhead press with a rotation built into it. That rotation means the lateral and anterior deltoids go through a longer range of motion than just a standard press, creating a more complete stimulus. It's a finishing movement, high quality, controlled movement, not a strength exercise. Step number 1. Sit upright on a bench or stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Hold your dumbbells at shoulder height with your palms facing towards you, as if you just completed a curl, so like this. This is different from the standard pressing start position, which is like this. This is for the Arnold press, shoulder press. Arnold press, shoulder press. Okay, step number 2, as you press the dumbbells upwards, you're going to rotate your wrists so that by the time your arms are extended overhead, your palms are facing forwards. The rotation should be smooth and continuous throughout the press. Step number 3 is to reverse the rotation on the way down as you lower the dumbbells back to shoulder height, rotating your palms back towards you, return to that starting position. And then they repeat for the remaining reps. Some key points here are: do not rush the rotation. Let it happen naturally through the range of motion. Keep your core braced and try to avoid arching your lower back. Use a moderate weight here, as the rotation makes this more demanding than a standard press at the same weight. Our recommendation here is 2 to 4 sets of anywhere between 8 and 15 repetitions with this one. So that is the 6 exercises. Here's how to structure them into a session. If you want a dedicated shoulder day, start with the seated dumbbell overhead press as your compound foundation, and that is where you put your heaviest effort whilst you are freshest. Follow with the cable lateral raises and the dumbbell lateral raise drop sets. Okay, back to back, and that will be your lateral delt block, which is the heart of your session. Then move to the bent over rear delt flies and face pulls as your posterior delt and health block. And finish with the Arnold press as a quality burnout to hit the full deltoid through a long range of motion. The total session should last between 45 and 60 minutes. Do 2 dedicated shoulder sessions per week with at least 48 hours between them for recovery. Within 3 months of consistent training, you will see a meaningful change in your shoulder silhouette. Within 6, you won't even recognise your upper body. Alternatively, you can incorporate them throughout the week in different sessions. For example, the face pull or rear flies could very easily go to a pull session. Wide shoulders aren't built by accident. They're built by understanding exactly what you are training, choosing the right movements for each head of the deltoid, and executing them with discipline over time. Lateral delts are for the width, rear delts are for the depth and posture, heavy pressing for the overall mass. Everything else supports those 3 pillars. If this has helped you, be sure to drop a like and subscribe, as it genuinely does make a difference. Let me know in the comments which shoulder exercise you're going to start prioritising, because I bet money for most of you it is rear delt work. And if you want me to build a full upper body attractiveness series covering chest, arms, back and anything else, let me know below and I'll get it done. We'll see you in the next one. Peace!